abroad in Singapore last semester, and I arrived during the week of Singapore's National Day, which is essentially Singapore's Independence Day. And during this time, the government releases a national pop song about Singaporean pride, multiculturalism, and racial harmony. Interestingly, my Gen Z classmates frequently call these songs out of touch and trying too hard to be Singaporean. And it made me wonder, if National Day songs are out of touch with Gen Z Singaporeans, then what kind of local music is in touch with their identities? And thus my research question asks, how does participation in local music scenes facilitate the emergence of a Gen Z Singaporean identity? So Singapore's national identity and national music has been highly established in the literature, but a grassroots Singaporean identity, describing the qualities, values, and perspectives shared by Singaporeans, has received very little attention, especially in conjunction with local music. And Gen Z inform the future of Singapore, socially, culturally, and politically. So I argue that they are one of the most important generations to study right now in Singapore. Gen Z and music are also inherently global, with Gen Z being considered digital natives and digital music streaming enabling the democratization of music creation and consumption. And so this creates avenues in which global values can enter local spaces through music. So for example, alternative rock may have originated in the US, but now it has global reach. There are scenes in Singapore. And alternative rock is known for its anti-establishment values and for challenging the capitalist music industry. And so with these values in mind, I chose the Singapore alternative rock scene as my primary site of research, because it has the potential for Gen Z to not just challenge capitalism in the music industry, but also how capitalist institutions shape the dominant practices in Singapore society. And so the scene kind of stages this reimagination of Singaporean identity beyond the nation's ideological constraints. Over the course of 4 months, I took part in participant observation of alternative rock scenes in Singapore, and I interviewed 26 Gen Z scene members about how their engagement with the music connects them to their Singaporean identity as cosmopolitan youth. And one of the first things that they mentioned was that art and multiculturalism are things that they feel like the government only values for its ability to generate tourism and foreign investment and business. And this is something that collaborates with a lot of prior literature around Singapore's national identity. And similarly, as you can see in the National Day pop song screenshots I have here, these are really performative displays of identity and music. And the Gen Z, they did not resonate with this because they didn't feel like the government had genuine interest in including diverse identities into Singapore. And so it caused a lot of the Gen Z in the alternative rock scenes to feel alienated by the wider Singaporean population. However, they did articulate that the alternative rock scene is where they felt the most Singaporean. And I argue that this is because of their participation in the scene, and that participation led to the emergence of a newfound Singaporean identity that they found relatable and that was around the shared resistance to national identity and embracing diversity. And so this is the focus of my findings, and it's also what I call alternative imagined communities. So this is my adaptation of Benedict Anderson's theory of imagined communities. And imagined communities is characterizing the nation as a socially constructed community of people. And those people imagine themselves as being part of a larger group. So just like us Americans, I mean, I don't know if everyone's here is American, but Americans share a lot of the same pop culture, news, and current events. And these shared experiences allow us to imagine ourselves as being part of a shared American identity. But I complicate this theory just a bit further. So alternative has commonly denoted resistance to the capitalist music industry, but I extend this definition to also emphasize that participants in the scene are actively challenging the ways in which capitalism shapes national identity. So I realize this is all really abstract. So I want to ground this in some concrete examples in my interviews. So here's a quote from Abdullah, it's a pseudonym. Abdullah felt the most connected to a Singaporean identity when everyone, regardless of categorical identities, felt like they were equal members of the community and of Singapore at large. And this form of inclusion is really in great contrast to how multiculturalism is practiced in Singapore on a national level, where identity is treated as a form of social control and of exclusion. To give an example, Singapore's government quite literally allocates housing on the basis of race, and gender and sexuality play really big roles in housing allocation as well. And so Gen Z, although they are proud of supporting and creating music that is independent of the music industry, they are, I think most interestingly, proud of the fact that they are part of a community that is imagining a more creative and inclusive Singapore. And so while my study only captures one Gen Z music community, it also suggests that there are also other alternative imagined communities worldwide as Gen Z are introduced to global values through music and other forms of art and media. And finally, alternative imagined communities is a reminder that even though a nation's values can be indicative of who we are, they really aren't, especially for Gen Z. Thank you, and I also would like to thank my faculty member, mentor, Professor Long Bui, and the International Studies Department.